In the Patriots preseason opener, Brian Hoyer got the start, and he was quite impressive. I'm Sierra Goodwill here with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth, guys. He 2 touchdown passes, 12 for 14, 147 yards. He looked really good. So now Jarrett Stidham entered the game, and he also looked really good. And he obviously you could argue has a higher ceiling than Brian Hoyer. So what's the situation like now? Who's QB2?
Well, I think that Brian Hoyer has done enough, for me at least, out here to keep that job for the time being. Now, if we get down to roster cuts and there's just a lot of really tough decisions that this team has to make at the back end of the roster, I could see them saying Stidham has played well enough to trust him as the backup. But in that game against the Lions on Thursday night, Brian Hoyer was on fire. Like, there's no other way to put it. He had 2 incompletions the entire first half. He was 12 for 14, as you said, Sierra. So he really put on an absolute show. After the game, Stidham. Everybody's talking about Stidham. Brian Hoyer played better than Jarrett Stidham did, and he just is kind of not the shiny new toy, so he gets swept under the rug a little bit. The touchdown pass that he threw to Maurice Harris was an absolute dime. I mean, he picked out the man-to-man coverage. He knew his matchups. He found Maurice Harris running out of the slot, and he threw an absolute dime over the defender. He also threw, I thought, a really good pass to N'Keal Harry on that back shoulder on that third down on that same drive. He was making some high-level throws, too. It wasn't just Jarrett Stidham.
So let me actually take what you said and flipped it. Who's quarterback 2 and who's earned it? I actually had Hoyer locked in at quarterback 2. Now I wonder if he's playing so well than the way he plays himself off the roster because he played so well. Evan, you mentioned that there's going to be a lot of tough decisions to make when they have to cut this roster down. Brian Hoyer played to a level, and if he keeps playing to this level, he's going to be a valuable commodity. We've already seen one team in the Eagles lose their backup quarterback. That's going to happen again. That's the preseason. Quarterbacks are going to get hurt. And I wonder if somebody comes along and, maybe gives up a little too much for Brian Hoyer because they're desperate, knowing the Patriots, knowing they have Stidham and seeing what he's been, can they afford to say no if a team gives them a good offer for Brian Hoyer? I think he played so well to the point now they have to look and see what's out there for him.
Right, and I guess the question becomes, with Tom Brady being 42 years old, you have to look at it in a way where if he goes down first 4 games of the season, is Jarrett Stidham ready to lead the New England Patriots? And that's a question that I don't know if
that's the question, right? Like, that's the number one question about this whole argument. The answer is no. Like, listen, I love Stidham. I think Stidham's looked really great.
I think the drop is from Tom Brady to anybody is so big
that
obviously it doesn't matter.
I think that they could get by with Brian Hoyer at quarterback. Are they going to win the Super Bowl with Brian Hoyer at quarterback? Probably not. But I think they could get by with Brian Hoyer at quarterback. I think that they'd have a tough time getting by with Stidham right now. I mean, you go back to so far, his progression has mirrored a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo's progression in his rookie season in 2014. Jimmy Garoppolo was not ready to start in 2014. It took a couple of years, and it took a lot of reps in practice to get him to that point to where he could have that 2016 breakout and then obviously go from there. I really think that Hoyer is, when he comes into the game and when he comes into the huddle, there's like just a sense of professionalism about the team where the offense still runs on time, the ball still comes out when it's supposed to, it goes to the right players, he makes the right decision, he takes care of the football, and he just has this air of professionalism, whereas with Stidham, we're still kind of like on a boat, right? Like, we're still rocky a little bit.
Let me ask you this. Bill Belichick famously has said that he favors the 5-year outlook over the 1-year outlook. You make the move that makes the team better over a 5-year span versus a 1-year span. If somebody's going to come out and give you, let's say, a day 2 draft pick for Brian Hoyer, let's say you get a 3rd round pick for him, that's high. Teams will get desperate for quarterback. We have seen teams get desperate for quarterbacks.
Not for backup quarterbacks. It's one thing to make a big trade for a starter.
Brian Hoyer, to me, is a borderline starting quarterback. He is a top 3. You can make the argument
he's
the top backup quarterback in football.
There's no team in right now, especially where the league is right now, where there's a ton of young quarterbacks playing around the league that have a lot of promise. Like, you're not going to see any of these teams start Brian Hoyer.
Let's say a team loses their starter. He's probably better than the backup on any given NFL team.
I don't think he's the best backup in the league, if that's what you're saying.
90% of the league.
He's
better
a
than
top
the backup.
10 backup.
Top tier.
I would say top 3. We went through the list before. I'll give you Teddy Bridgewater. I'll give you Ryan Tannehill. Maybe. That's it. Tyrod Taylor, it's about a wash.
He is not a wash, Alex.
It's about a wash.
Absolutely. Tyrod Taylor is, he's athletic, so he can run with the ball. He started in Buffalo and got them to the playoffs. This is not a wash.
I'm a big Tyrod Taylor guy. All right, so that's 3 teams. That's 3 of 32.
He's a nice backup quarterback.
All I'm saying is one team A number of teams are one injury away from being very desperate. And the Patriots are going to have the hot commodity on the
Brian
market.
Hoyer is the guy that they're going to chase after. I just if they're going to look
he
at,
might be the best option out there.
If they're going to look at backup quarterbacks and they're going to say who's like the guy that we can bring in here, you think that they're going to try to make a trade for Brian Hoyer over Ryan Tannehill or Tyrod or even Blake Bortles? Or
those guys don't have Tom Brady's in front of them.
They might be
Jarrett
available.
Stidham's
I mean,
behind
Teddy Bridgewater has
That's right.
Drew
Or
Brees in
Jarrett
front of him.
Stidham's behind them. Thank you very much.
I just
crux of the point.
listen,
Thank you.
Listen, I love debating with you. If you get a day 2 pick back from Brian Hoyer, then Bill Belichick is
Doing something.
hallelujah.
Doing
You know,
something
that's
right.
incredible.
This Patriots training camp report is brought to you by betonline.ag. Head to their website, enter promo code CLNS50 for your bonus. And of course, we have to see if Brian Hoyer continues with that pace of play in the second preseason game coming up.
We're already
on
trading
Saturday.
second-round picks for him. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. At the Tennessee Titans. But for all of our coverage leading up to that game, head to our website at clnsmedia.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel at CLNS Media.